Okay, I better get rid of that.
Well,
Got it.
hello again, everybody. Welcome to another session of the 15th annual Transforming the Teaching and Learning Environment virtual conference. I'm Bob Hales. I'm your moderator. Uh, our session this afternoon is using feedback and technology for better student engagement. We have with us Dr. Tony Nicoletti, who's an instructional course designer at Central State University in wonderful Wilberforce, Ohio. I happen to be from Athens, Ohio. So
Oh, okay.
uh, she has worked there for 2 years, assisting the College of Business with course design, conducting faculty training and workshops, and is a Quality Matters online and face-to-face facilitator, as well as a peer reviewer. We also have Vicki Brace, who is the LMS Systems Administrator at Central State. And she has fun every day with D2L and the third-party software that integrates into it. And I am going to turn it now over to you two.
Okay, hi, welcome to our presentation. We're so glad that you could join us today. We're basically going to talk about using feedback and technology for better student engagement. So first of all, we're going to, come on slide, go to the next one. First of all, we're going to kind of introduce ourselves. So I am Vicki Brace. I've worked in higher ed since about 2008. I've been director of distance learning. I've been an LMS administrator. I've been an ICD, and I've been everything in between and all those at the same time sometimes. But I have a background in education, and my interest is in developing working with student retention and developing ways to engage the students in online environments. It can be a bit of a challenge. And so that's always been my area of interest. I'm also very much interested in gamification and micro-learning. So, but basically my daily responsibility is to work with the LMS system, and we do have D2L, and also to help provide the training for the D2L for our faculty and our students, and also working with our third-party vendors that we use as well. So now I'm going to pass you off to Dr. Tony Nicoletti.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tony Nicoletti, and as Bob said, I'm an instructional course designer at Central State. Vicki and I work together on a larger team of LMS administrators and instructional designers on our team. And I have been here for 2 years. My main background was as a philosophy professor, and I got into instructional design kind of through the back door, I guess, because when I was asked to teach an online philosophy course in 2008, I wasn't sure exactly how philosophy concepts and the difficult material that we teach was going to translate into online courses. So I did spend a lot of time trying to improve my courses to make sure that students who were taking them online were getting the same as a quality experience, and able to learn the difficult material, and also feeling engaged. When something's really difficult, it can be easy to get turned off by it. And so that's really a big part of my interest in online design, as well as online teaching for instructors, helping them to make their classes more engaging, to increase student motivation, persistence, completion, and success in those classes. So I appreciate you letting us talk to you today.
So today we're going to talk a little bit about an introduction to feedback. If you watched Matthew's presentation earlier, he talked about feedback as well. We're going to talk about some of the different types of feedback and the benefits, the issues that we identified with feedback, and the tools that we initially used at our university, and the gap we identified with feedback and how we're working to fill it, and the tools that are available from a company called Feedback Fruits support. And we're also going to talk about the analytics and the adoption rate of Feedback Fruits. So, Tony.
So the question we have here, to provide or to not provide feedback, and it is very important, and students value feedback. There's a lot of research to say that students value feedback. It makes them, in online environments in particular, can make them feel more connected to the class. We tend to think about feedback also as, of course, I mean, if it's a multiple choice test or a test, giving them the correct answers to correct their knowledge gaps, but it also can be a really important tool for helping them progress in their class, or experience progress for upcoming assignments. So, for example, a lot of you are probably familiar with the concept of formative assessments and the distinction between formative and summative assessments. And there's a lot of research to show that providing students with formative assessments can be very beneficial to their learning. And the fact that, we think of tests as, well, a test, a summative assessment is a test of what students have learned. It allows you to say if they've met the objectives for the class, but tests are also learning experiences, right? We always learn that best when we make mistakes and we can correct those. And so there's been a lot of work and research done on how important it is to give students practice opportunities before they have to do a summative assessment, so that they can see their errors and learn from them and correct them as they go. And then on another note, we can talk a little bit about personalized feedback, even if it is on a summative assessment, and how that can help students to improve on future assignments, right? Guiding them in that feedback so that in the future, they don't make those errors again. They know exactly what they can do, right? Even beyond what they're told in a rubric, giving them personalized feedback can be important. The other thing that we wanted to address is that if you are, from an American audience, you've probably heard something about regular and substantive interaction and federal compliance for instructors, and how your engagement in courses is going to be evaluated by the federal government, which controls, of course, whether your institution receives money for financial aid for your students. And they are now gauging that in terms of what they call regular and substantive interaction, or what we'll call RSI for short. And so we're trying to improve educate really our instructors on RSI, and helping them, giving them tools so that they can meet the requirements of RSI. And finally, engaging our students, through feedback, through the kinds of assignments, through the content, through what we're providing them in the LMS.
Okay, so the tools that we had in place when we were looking at how are we going to provide feedback, we had the D2L learning management system. Well, D2L does allow us to provide feedback. For example, when a student turns in an assignment, as Matt showed earlier, you could actually go in and record a video, record an audio, or even just type in feedback. But typically that's when they've already completed the assignment. And so you're giving them feedback that's going to help them possibly in the future, or help them and sometimes we do have it where they can go in and revise an assignment and, and then use the feedback. But a lot of times the students aren't looking at the feedback. So we kind of felt like that was kind of a passive type of feedback. And then we have Panopto. Panopto allows us to go in and be able to record feedback. You could record an audio, video, or again, and you could attach it to the student in either your rubric or where you're grading them at, and you could attach that particular video. The other two tools we had was Respondus and Smarter Proctoring. Those are proctoring tools. And basically, if your exam provides feedback, then the student's going to get to see the feedback. But again, that's kind of a passive form of feedback. And then we had Zoom. Zoom allows us to meet synchronously. And of course, as we all know, in the last couple of years, we got very familiar with Zoom. And if you were having a synchronous meeting, then yes, that was great. You could go ahead and give the students the feedback and talk to them just like you're in the classroom. But if you're doing it asynchronously, that becomes a little bit more tricky, okay? So we looked at these tools and we said, we definitely got some gaps in terms of providing feedback for our students. So the gaps we identified is that we were actually creating passive learning environments where students were getting their assignments, getting their books, getting videos, but they weren't actively engaged in those items. They were just basically either watching the video or reading the book and taking the test, or doing the project or whatever we were requiring them to do for the course. But most of the materials we were presenting was in a passive type environment. And then we felt that we were seeing a lack of student engagement. I don't know how many of you, and I know when I taught, I would record all these great videos, and at first you'd see this great where they would watch all the videos, and then it's like, oh, then it would drop off. And you would go, oh, I spent so much time on that video, but now they're not watching it. Or it goes the other way. They're not looking at the book at all, but then they're looking at the videos. So we felt like we had a lack of student engagement with the materials, and again, that passive learning. And then we also had an issue with instructor presence in RSI. RSI requires contact hours, and that is a 2021 is when they came out with the RSI and the requirements, the contact hours. So we have to build instructor presence within the courses, because the difference is the government now has classified what is the difference between a correspondence course as opposed to an active online course. So if you're not familiar with it, I suggest you go out and read about it, and you can contact Tony or I, and we can hook you up with where that's located at. But overall, our gaps identified was just not immediacy in working with the students in the learning environment. Tony.
So speaking of RSI, I did put in this handy chart that is really helpful for distinguishing for what Vicki was saying, which is the federal government will give financial aid for distance education, but they do not give federal aid for correspondence education in particular. I mean, the kinds of courses that we're talking about. And so RSI is now the way that they define what distinguishes correspondence courses from distance education. And the chart on this page, I put the reference there as well, gives you some ideas about what would be the difference. So for example, grading papers and not giving students feedback does not meet RSI, but giving them personalized feedback and helping them in ways that will help them improve their ability to learn the content does meet those requirements. And anytime that you're interacting with them. So for example, what's a classic model now for trying to get, let's say, student to student interaction is through discussion boards. However, if that professor is, even if you're making comment, well, you would meet RSI by giving them personalized feedback on the discussion, but you're not getting it just by putting a grade on it. You have to be interactive in that discussion, okay? And so that would be a way of meeting RSI. And so we're looking for ways that can help, other than, virtual sessions, which the demands of flexibility for online courses don't always allow, right? It's just not practical that, especially in some cases, you can't require students to meet at a specific time if that is designated as an asynchronous online course. And so we need different ways to meet it. The federal government has provided various ways that you can meet it. But we want to also help facilitate our instructors in being able to do that in their classes. So the tool that we employed, or the tool that we acquired, is called Feedback Fruits. Now you'll see a couple of the tools that we're going to demonstrate. I have seen them. There are other places where you can use them. And we're going to talk a little bit more towards the end about our collaboration with Feedback Fruits. Talking about engagement, it's so important. And even for us, our engagement with the team at Feedback Fruits, who are motivated, actually, a lot of them grew up or, went to college in the online environment, and they just felt it was a very passive experience. And so a lot of the tools were really designed with that aim in mind. And our collaboration with them has been very important, as well as the tools that they have. And we'll talk about that when we get towards, after we go through and demonstrate some of the tools. So they do have 4 design themes, 13 pedagogical tools. I'm not going to go through all of them. I just put arrows by the ones that I'm going to talk about specifically. But in talking about engagement, any of these tools would be important tools, but the ones that we've mostly used at this point, I'm going to demonstrate how we've used those to engage students, but also for RSI. Okay. And so we're going to talk about one of the feedback tools, which is the assignment review tool, and then the activating study materials. And we're going to talk about the interactive study materials under there. There's another tool, the comprehension tool, that allows for you to set up electronically a way for students to annotate an article, and also they can correspond with their peers about the annotations or view other people's. That's another important tool we've used. We're going to focus on these today in terms of engagement and feedback, and then also the practical application of RSI. Bless you, Vicki. Okay, so let me talk first about the interactive study tool.
Excuse me.
Obviously, we can't do a live demonstration right now, but we'll, I put some screenshots in here so you can get an idea of how these look for the students. So the interactive study materials in particular are the interactive video and document. There's also audio. You can use podcasts. You can do it with a podcast, but the main ones that we've seen have been interactive videos and documents. And it allows students to interact with the study materials, and also you can interact with them through those.
Oops,
Next
sorry.
slide. It's okay.
Oh,
You could hit the next part too. So how do the teachers use interactive study materials? And again, these are interactive documents and interactive videos. So you might post an article or a book chapter with questions. You might post a case study and ask some questions about it, as well as have a discussion about it. Asking questions about the lecture. You could put the slide, you could put, if you have written lecture notes, you could put slides in there. And then as far as the interactive video, you might put your recorded lecture in there. You could put a TED Talk, a YouTube video, whatever kind of video into it, and then you can make that interactive. So here's just an example of one from a professional writing course. It's an introduction to professional writing. And so if the student, and again, this is embedded in the LMS. So when the student, and we were talking about this prior to the start of the session, we use D2L. But it of course can be embedded in other LMSs as well. But anyway, when the student opens the interactive video, they'll see the instructions, and then they can open the video. That's the second picture there.
Mm-hmm.
And then once they open the video, I think this is a little bit repetitive, but the one that I have here is active versus passive voice in your writing. And they would open it up and start watching. But then instead of passively watching, it will stop at intervals, and you can ask them questions. That way you can, obviously point their attention to important lessons that you want to give them, or you want them to get from the video, and obviously keep their attention. And then importantly, because this is important for formative assessments, they will get the correct answers right away. And in fact, you can use these just as a participation grade, so that students get the credit even for, any of the answers that they give, as long as they interact with it. But they can get the answers right away for the multiple choice questions. And then you can also stimulate interaction between the students. So you can have them have a discussion in there. You can be part of the discussion, not to trail off too much about RSI, but in order for it to meet regular and substantive interaction, you would have to be very much part of the live discussion, and facilitating that throughout. But that is also the interactive video. We're demonstrating it in terms of content and student content engagement, but it's also you can get that instructor or student to student, as well as student to instructor engagement. And then the students can also reflect on the activity. That would be an optional part of the assignment. And then this is just showing you the instructors, and that you can, get their progress. You can track everybody's progress as a class. And then the students, the grade can be embedded right into your LMS. Again, we have D2L, so once the student completes the assignment, they can see their grade in there. And then just to say how it was used in the class. So when I talked earlier about formative assessments versus summative assessments, formative assessments being those that are very low stakes or no stakes, right? So maybe you give them a participation grade for engaging with the video assignment. But then you can design that assignment. You could, use your own instructor-led videos, of course, also. But then you can use that assignment to help them prepare for a summative assessment. So the active versus passive voice video was part of preparation for an assignment that they had. And so the assignment required them to revise the body of a memo, and they were to correct grammatical errors and make sure to use the active and passive voice properly as part of that written assignment. And then in the video assignment, students had to identify examples of the passive voice versus the active voice and what changes should be made to those sentences. And then by learning from their mistakes on the video that they received participation points for, they could use what they learned in the video assignment to complete the memo. And so they've had some active preparation that they weren't graded for that helped them to get ready for what you might call a quote unquote high stakes assessment. And then just to show you, I think this is actually very novel and interesting. So you could use this also for a document, or you could put in if you wanted students to read a section of a journal article or your notes or just any kind of article, you could use it to similar structure, but you could use an article instead of a video. I had seen previously video, interactive videos, but not interactive documents. So this one is on the Sicilian food experience. I just created it for Vicki. She lives in Sicily, to test her knowledge of Sicilian food. I can't remember if you passed.
Good.
I'm not even sure you took it.
It's good though.
Yeah, it is. It was a good article. So here, students can read the article, and as they're reading it, they can answer the questions, and it'll point their attention to what you specifically want them to read. You can do multiple choice. You can do short answer, written responses. Yeah, so why does the author think that Sicilian cuisine is the most interesting? You can answer the question and submit it. I think I forgot to put in, you get the answer. And this one is fill in the blank.
And short answer.
Yeah, and then short answer here. And you can also put a discussion question in there so that students, and they can also, even with the short answer, they can view each other's responses as well. So you can make it very interactive that way.
And you can also build a discussion within it as well. And
yeah, that's
you can also do video responses now. They've updated that, so in a lot of these. So.
Oh yeah, so students can now do video responses, and that is actually new. And then students review the instructor feedback, and they can reflect on the assignment again. There was something else I was going to add about that when you said about, but I'll probably think of it, hopefully I'll think of it at some point. And then this is one that, so we were very focused on the interactive tools and the ability to make the content more engaging. And then, of course, our instructors, we did purchase the entire tool suite. And we were, some of them we were familiar with, like using the discussion questions and some of the options that you could use, in various tools. But then our instructors really took off with the some of the assignment review tool. And our College of Education in particular, we had an instructor who was evaluating students as they went into the classroom, and they would have to submit a video of their work in the field, teaching in the classroom. And she really took to the assignment review tool and Feedback Fruits because it allowed her to, if the students submitted the video in the assignment review tool after she set it up, she could go through it and she could stop at each interval. She could leave comments right there at that interval, and then she could grade them according to a rubric. She can put in comments. Interestingly, if you, I think it's on this one, the students can evaluate the feedback that they receive.
Mhm.
If you could just go to the next slide, I think I'm jumping ahead also.
That's great.
And then you can set up a reflection question. So after the students review their feedback, they can reflect on the assignment. You could even have them here maybe reflect on the feedback itself, right? And have an opportunity. In fact, they can reply right to the feedback and ask questions, but you could have them do, some type of reflection on that feedback. And I've talked about formative versus summative assessments. And like I said, I don't know if a lot of people, it's a very current topic, or it's been a hot topic, we could say, over the past number of years. And a lot of people are probably familiar with it, but there's really some good research on student engagement and how, instructor presence in courses. And in online courses, just posting a video lecture does not necessarily make students feel like you are engaged in that class. They can see that you know your content, but they really gauge that more through personal interaction, through emails, through course messages, but also through your feedback. And a lot of students, there were qualitative studies done, and when students had to evaluate the instructor engagement and how much they felt like they were a part of that online course, a lot of their responses indicated that that connection really, they experienced it through the instructor feedback. And they would say things like, she really gave a lot of feedback. You could tell she cared about my improvement. And how are you going to show that? You can show that through email and how you respond to their concerns. But a lot of students, they might not email you concerns, but they're all submitting those assignments. And then if you construct your feedback correctly, and that's a somewhat different topic, we know that feedback can really set them up for success. You can provide that encouragement for, what can they do to improve on the next assignment. But you really can establish that connection with them through written feedback. And this kind of a tool really allows the student to respond directly to it, to reflect on it. And then our instructors used it in a way that they could really pinpoint, for example, in video assignments, and just, write their comments in there. We know we usually can do that in the LMS in your written assignments, but these were video submissions, and she could do it with that. So she really took off with the assignment review tool.
And she also said that it saves her a lot of time, and the students are very excited because she watches their video and she comments, and they get the video back with their comments right away. And so she's really gone far with this tool anyway.
Mm-hmm. So why feedback fruits? Of course, there's all kinds of tool suites out there. There's some that might combine some of the features that we've said. They may not have all of them. Well, number one, it is their tools. They are excellent tools, and they've been really easily integrated into the LMS. The instructors have not had a whole lot of issue setting them up. They do have a chat. They say they'll get back very quickly. But from our end, it's also been very beneficial because they are so hands-on with us. We meet for a while, we met with them weekly. Now we meet bi-weekly. We collaborate together on workshops. We recently did a workshop collaboration about using the tools to meet the requirements for RSI. And so not only do they provide, workshops and webinars to help our instructors have a general idea of how to use the tools, but they will also hold workshops that are very tailored to the needs that we have. And they are very motivational. They've really helped us, as how to contribute or how to, encourage the use of the tools. And so it's just been a very hands-on, very fruitful partnership. And they're very passionate about the tool because, again, as I was saying earlier, a lot of them were students in online courses. When I went to college, I didn't have that experience. I mostly had that experience as an instructor. But they really designed them from the student perspective and knowing what it was like to be in a class where everything was very passive. And so the creators of it really wanted current students to have a different kind of experience. And so if you've ever heard about, like, through Quality Matters, we talk about student to content engagement, student instructor engagement, and student student engagement. And you can meet all of those, using the tools. And again, meeting the needs of RSI.
Okay, so now we're going to talk a little bit about the data. As Tony said, we initially met with them on a weekly basis because they are very hands-on when you roll out their tool suite. You meet with them, you determine which tools you think that your faculty might be interested in, because there's 13 tools, and that can be overwhelming because the professors are like, well, I don't want to learn all these 13 tools. Just tell me which tools are going to help me in my class. And so each time we meet with them, they would give us our data analytics, which was really nice. So in this chart, we were pretty excited. This last month, we went over 1,000 students using it for a school that has 2,600, right, Tony, around there, full-time students. That's pretty good. And then we have very active teachers in it, and we're getting more and more. So they give us all this data analytics. So we're seeing that, okay, we're not just bought a tool and we don't know if it's really getting utilized. So it's nice that they give us the data analytics, because I'm a data kind of person. Obviously, I'm an LMS administrator. So I want to know that I'm actually getting a good product for what we need. So the tools that we initially started with, this chart tells us that we initially started with the interactive video, the interactive document, and comprehension. Comprehension is a little bit different. It's kind of cool because you can actually see if the students are comprehending the reading materials and that you're presenting to them. But you're seeing that we're starting to see it kind of edge up, that some of the professors, and they're actually taking on these tools themselves. For example, as Tony was talking about, where we had the professor where she teaches in the College of Education, and now she's able to watch those videos, and instead of having to type out all her notes and tell them what was going on and say, well, at one point in the classroom this happened, she can stop the video, make a comment, and actually the student sees it in real time. They'll just send it back to them. And that's the one thing that is really good about this. Another thing we're starting to see them use is the discussion topic. And you're saying, well, why would you have a discussion topic in use feedback fruits when you already have that in D2L? Well, the difference is immediacy. With the feedback fruits, we're getting more and more student to instructor interaction, as well as student to student interaction, as well as student with content interaction. So at each point, the professor can provide feedback all through the student. And you can also, you can look at the reports that Tony showed you, and you can see where students may be having an issue, like maybe they just didn't get through question number 1 they have in a video. So you could say, maybe I need to fill in a little bit more of that, or give them a little, another background video or something. So what's nice about this is it gets the professors, a little bit more feedback, because they're going, instead of waiting until they turn in the assignment or whatever, and then we go ahead and give them feedback on their overall grade. So, and then the final bit of data that they give us, and we discuss this every time, these are the classes that are using them. And so you'll see some repeat instructors, because these are our early adopters. These are the ones who said, this is a cool tool and I'm using it. And so, and we're seeing more and more instructors are adopting it. And the students are actually responding extremely well to it. They're like, wow, it is so cool to get feedback, because sometimes they just kind of feel like they might be just out there. So it is a neat suite that we have, and it is very easy to get to. I mean, it resides inside of our LMS. The professor basically just goes out, picks on a course tool. They go to feedback fruits, and they're right there working in feedback fruits, and it stays inside our LMS. The students stay inside our LMS, and everything is controlled inside the LMS, which is kind of nice. So it's very, very easy to interact. The one thing that we really have enjoyed about feedback fruits as well is our professors. They'll reach out to our professors if you want them to, and they'll talk to the professors and say, what can we do to improve our tool? What can we do to make this more interactive? And so at first it was just, you kind of had to type in feedback. Now it's all audio, video, and typing it, so they keep evolving it as it's going on. And so it's a pretty exciting tool to actually be kind of, in the kind of still the infancy of it, but it is advancing quite quickly, and they're listening to everything, and they keep adding new tools, as well as when you go onto their website, they actually have papers on various subjects such as feedback or student interaction online, things like that. And they also, gosh, it came in my mind and went out of my mind, but they're just really interactive with us. And, that's kind of rare in some of the tools nowadays. But that kind of gives you an idea of the data that we talk about. And like Tony said, we first did it every week, and when they were actually helping us with rollout in each term, they offer for us 3 to 4 trainings. And they ask us, what do you want us to train on? What do you want us to help you on? How do you want us to help you? They're just very, very interactive with the educational environments that they're working in. And that's basically our presentation. This is our contact information. So if you're interested in hearing more, if you have a question and you'd like to unmute your microphone and ask us a question, we're more than happy to answer it. Can you see the chat, Tony? I can't see the chat.
Yeah, there isn't anything. I was going to add that too, Vicki, when you said that about the fact that not only, that we, in our meetings, they'll talk about, like your instructor had this difficulty and they emailed us, and if there's any ongoing issues about that problem, they'll let us know so that we're aware of what's going on within the school and also with the students. So the students have access to like a chat, the students and professors to a chat, but then they'll even report it back to us. Yeah, and I am happy to say that in that usage report, I was mentioning at the beginning that my background is in philosophy. Our philosophy instructor is one of our biggest users of it, because it really, when you're teaching something that's conceptual, and in the humanities, it can, the practical courses have their own challenges, but you have to be careful in humanities types courses that students don't get turned off of the difficulty and it's, abstract. And so he's found it to be very beneficial. And so our philosophy department is one of our big users of it.
Yeah, then education comes second, which that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And history, they're using quite a bit in the history courses too. So we are seeing them adopt and the students are just responding really well. The students are now asking professors, do you use that feedback fruits thing? So it's kind of cool. Yeah.
We do have a question. Have you used the feedback fruit skill review tool? I have not used it. I was going to mention before, and I remembered what I was going to mention. That one I haven't, but on the one hand, we were talking about how important it is to have instructor engagement. On the other hand, they also have a really good AI tool for helping students get a first read on whatever kind of, they can do like AI grading. And so you can plug in what things you want students to look for, like grammar, of course, and sentence structure might be, thesis statement, things like that. And so you could have like a first draft of the paper, students submit it to that, and it is graded by AI. And then it really, in a way, it's good for the instructor as well in terms of their engagement, because instead of spending your time on that, once you get that second draft, it's more improved and you can focus more on content and, and that kind of learning. So that was one of the tools I was going to say there. That one I haven't used. Have you, Vicki?
No, I haven't played with it, but if you wanted to take her contact information, love to meet with you, have a Zoom session, we could take a look at it and see how it works, that would be great. Love to. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to meet with you in a Zoom session and we can look at it and see exactly what it does. See if it's something that you're interested in.
Do we have a lot of instructors in here or in designers? I'm not sure what the, maybe we should ask at the beginning. I'm kind of curious what kind of role do people have who are in the session? You could put it in the chat if you want.
Yeah. Or if you're like most of us, you have all the roles. So you can say all the above.
Yeah, I was just curious what end,
Yeah.
people are thinking about it because you have different, okay, so instructional design. Yeah, so you're looking at it from the end of, your instructors designing better class. Then there's the practical application, of course, of, whether your school can add the tool or, and we found that, I was going to say early on, our school, its online courses grew very quickly during the
Mhm.
pandemic. I mean, during the pandemic, of course, but then it just grew into its own thing after that. And when we got here a couple years ago, there were a sufficient number of instructors whose training came from the pandemic. And we know that what kind of issues that brought. And so part of our goal in the instructional design team has been to educate and assist our course developers in making more engaging classes and classes that aren't based on emergency teaching, but on a full online experience. And that was one of the reasons that we reviewed and acquired Feedback Fruits, because it did fill that gap for engagement. And in fact, some of the other tools that we acquired quickly, I think some of them we're going to phase out because D2L can accommodate that. But this one has been very beneficial, and the instructors really appreciate it and like it. So we are going to keep it.
Yeah, when we first initially brought it in, we brought it in as the smaller package, basically. So we did the first 3 tools, and they gave us a semester to evaluate it to see if any of our early adopters would be interested in using it, and to, educate and see if our faculty would be interested in it. Because, they give you that, that ability to bring it in, introduce it, and see if it's the right fit for your university or your college, so that was kind of refreshing. But,
so sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
okay.
Randall's talking your language. He's game-based learning instructor and designer.
Yay, you can call me. Yeah. Yeah, I'm actually designing our student training. I'm going to use a lot of the Feedback Fruits, and I'm also going to make it gamified, because D2L has quite the, the ability to gamify, a course. So I'm going to kind of play with that. But
is that with the awards and badges, or?
Yeah, and things like that. Yeah, make it a more interactive. But yeah, it's just a one way to fill some of the gap to meet, the interaction that you're required to by the federal government now. And so we found this is one tool in, in a group of tools that we're giving to our faculty to make our online courses to be more of an interactive environment for the student.
Randall, I don't know if would be interested in speaking at all, but I'm curious, to hear more about what you do, how you're guiding instructors to use game-based learning.
Sure. Hi.
Hi.
Where are you from?
Southern California.
Okay.
I teach at Cal State Fullerton. I teach I put together a game-based learning micro-credential program for educators. So for educators and trainers at all levels. And it was a standard certificate program, but we changed it to a micro-credential program based on feedback that educators, especially K-12 teachers, don't have time. So they can't spend 6-8 weeks going through a whole certificate program. So we chopped it up into smaller micro courses and have a micro-credential program. And
is the program itself game-based, or is within each part of that game-based?
Both.
Okay.
So the content is about how to use game-based learning in whatever you're doing, and to make whatever you're doing more engaging, like games are. From my background, I come from the video games industry, and have been in education for about 10 years now, and trying to combine the two, and using what makes games so engaging, and trying to use that in all education practices. So that's my mission, is to how do I help at all levels of education. So that's why this program helps educators at all levels just to open their eyes to seeing what not just games can do, but what being on the same mindset as a gamer That is the
Mhm.
important thing because our students, even adults now, are a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
gamers, right? And
Oh, yes.
they think and they learn like gamers. They behave and go
Mhm.
through life like gamers. But
Mhm.
we are educating them as non-gamers, and so
Yes.
we need to rethink the ways that we engage them.
Mhm.
So a lot of the things that you're doing, I've used Feedback Fruits
Oh, yay.
while back, and see and it was I think with some of the tools were had some pretty good success, but what I was looking for, and I'm still looking for, is something that that can uh, can foster more social learning. So
Mhm.
the as you know, like the benefits of the online platform, and my
Mhm.
micro credential program is fully asynchronous, fully online. And so the what are the benefits above and beyond an in-person synchronous course? And
Mhm.
you've got all this pushback, like online will never be as good as
Yeah.
in person. But I fully disagree that we just have to
Yeah.
look at what are the clear benefits of online education and
I
the
agree.
medium there. And one of the biggest one is that the opportunities for social learning,
Mhm.
I think, are much greater because of who you connect with in an online class versus an in-person class. In person, you're usually just talking to the people in your group or
Right.
who you're sitting next to, right? And online, you have the opportunity to connect everybody with everybody. And so if we can connect everybody with everybody, how do we get feedback from
Right.
everybody to everybody? So
Yeah.
my question that I was going to type in right now, that I'm thinking about, is that the traditional discussion forum platform, how do we either move away from that, or how do we make that better so that it's just more, it fosters social learning better than it does right now. Have you guys used Yellow Dig discussion tool?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
No, I haven't used
yeah,
it.
that's if you look into that, they are trying
Mhm.
to move the needle in the
Writing
discussion
down.
forum format.
Mhm.
So
What's their idea?
their idea is, well, they try to gamify it a little bit, but
Okay.
I think they make it more into like a social feed, so that you're just kind of going through like your Facebook feed or your Twitter feed, and you're going through, and then
Oh,
you're seeing things that you're interested in. And everything has tags, and
Oh, interesting.
yeah. So what I
Yeah.
used it for, though, is to highlight a specific game-based. So I have this framework called a gameful mindset. It's a framework of game-based competencies, basically. And so I'd like to see evidence of one or more of those competencies in
Mhm.
everything that they do. So
Right.
how do I track that, and how, more importantly, how can the other students track that in their peers, so that so for example, if we're here in the Zoom talk and you show so one of the competencies is continuous feedback. So gamers expect
Mhm.
continuous feedback for everything, right? And you're
Mhm.
talking about a lot of formative feedback, which is
Yeah.
in games, that's all we get is formative feedback.
mhm.
So
Yeah.
how do we recognize that, or how do other students recognize that in the design? So if somebody has designed some activity and they
Mhm.
say, oh, that provides great continuous feedback, how do we
Mhm.
let the other peers, not just the instructor, not just me, how do we let
Mhm.
everybody else recognize that, give a +1 continuous feedback to them, so that they
Yeah. Kind of the like, yeah. Well, I worked at a university and they developed a law that was based on, where they were presented cases and the students had to present back. And then they were rated by their students. And so as you moved up the ladder, and it was basically using the Xbox ladder, that kind of thing. So you were seeing, and as you moved up the ladder, then of course, they would have a professional come in and they would respond back to the whole class, but specifically address the top 5, so that's kind of how they did it. And it was just basically taking the Xbox rating, the X, you know what I'm talking about, but
have a
taking that rating,
letter-based system, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
right, taking that rating scale, and then the students voted basically, because they had to watch 5 of their fellow students. And as the students moved up, those were the ones that were, you know, kind of being presented into the class. But what was interesting is the professor said that he found that the students that didn't get high ratings were the better respondents.
Mm.
You know, so that was the issue that they were having. So, but it used to be called a PrenNet. I don't know what it's called now, but yeah, I'm kind of the same way. And I give presentations on micro lessons and micro learning, and, you know, and many, sometimes you have to put on your flak vest and say, trust me, especially when you're in an online environment, the time is essential, and you've got to catch their attention, and you've got to, you know, get the information across fairly quickly, but get the information to them, you know. So yeah, it's a challenge, definitely, but it's evolving. It's definitely evolving. The only thing that's nice about this is you can get peer-to-peer feedback, you can get peer instructor feedback, you know, and you can set it up so the student is getting certain feedback. Now, the other way that you do it is you just go in and the student is given decision point. They have to make a decision, and based on the decision they go, and that's Carl Kapp. I don't know if you know him, but he's really into that decision-based learning and in gamification, you know, so where they make a decision. Anyway, that's it. You know, if you want to reach out to me, I'd love to discuss this further with you, because this is my thing.
Sure, yeah.
Your jam.
I'll send you an email and maybe we can connect. And I'm also emailing Feedback Fruit about more details about their skills review tool, because
Yeah.
I'm starting up a new cohort later this month. So
Okay. Yeah, and if you'd love to talk, we could look at it together too in our LMS system, and we could see what it does, you know. So anyway,
that's good.
our time's up. Probably, Bob.
Yeah. Say goodbye, Vicki. Right.
Goodbye.
Anyway, Tony and Vicki, thank you very much. Obviously, you've spurred some interest. So, well,
Thank
I
you
hope
for
you have a
having
good
us.
rest of the
Thank you.
day there, and wonderful Wilberforce.
Yes. Thank
So-
you.
No,
for
she's in Sicily. I'm in Cleveland. We're
I'm in
virtual.
Sicily,
Just
so-
by the way.
Oh, well, that's better.
But it is
Fine
actually
today.
wonderful here today. We're having a little warm spell. And by
So
Lake
that's good.
Erie.
Yes.
See you guys.
Have a good day,
Bye-bye.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Uh,
Thank
you
you.
too.
Bye.